Forget everything the news anchors told you about this conflict. Stop. Think about this for 1 second. On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched Operation Epic Fury against Iran. Bombs fell, missiles flew, the world held its breath. But while ordinary people watched in horror, a very specific group of people did something completely different. They opened their brokerage apps, and they smiled. That is the story nobody is telling you. And by the time this video ends, you will never look at Middle East coverage the same way again. Stay with me because the numbers we are about to walk through are not opinions. They are documented, they are verified, and they are deeply disturbing. Before we go any further, if you are new here, welcome to Verified Bulletin. We do not do sensationalism. We do not do rumors. Every single claim in this video comes with a source, a number, and a paper trail. Hit that subscribe button right now because what we cover here, you genuinely cannot find packaged this way anywhere else on YouTube. Now, back to the money. Picture this scene. March 2nd, 2026, a Monday morning. The first trading day after Operation Epic Fury. Markets open. And within hours, something remarkable happens that almost nobody reported on in prime time. Northrop Grumman's stock jumps 4.1%. Raytheon Technologies, now called RTX, surges 4.7%. Lockheed Martin climbs 3.1%. All three companies simultaneously hit 52-week highs on the same day missiles were still being counted in Tehran. How much money is that in real terms? The combined shareholder wealth gain for the top 3 defense contractors on that single trading day was in the range of $25 to $30 billion. In one morning. Before lunch, while diplomats were still scrambling to understand what was happening on the ground. Now, before you scroll away thinking this is just a coincidence, a natural market reaction to geopolitical events, stick with me, because this goes so much deeper than stock prices moving. What we are about to trace is a financial architecture built years before the first strike, an architecture that profits whether there is war, whether there is a ceasefire, and in some cases, even if there is peace. That last part should terrify you, and I will explain exactly why in just a moment. First, let's set the scene properly, because context matters enormously here. Iran fired 15 ballistic and cruise missiles at a port in the United Arab Emirates. U.S. forces had been escorting vessels through the Strait of Hormuz under something called Project Freedom. Tensions had been building for months. Negotiations were happening in Geneva, Muscat, Rome. But here is the thing that the mainstream narrative keeps glossing over. Crude oil prices had been creeping up for weeks, based largely on concerns about threats to oil supplies and trade. Weeks, not days, weeks. Somebody knew something was building, somebody was positioning, and that somebody had access to serious capital. Now here is where the money trail actually starts. RTX has seen the biggest rise in stock price at 110% from March 2023 to March 2026, followed by Northrop Grumman at 60%, General Dynamics at 57%, and Lockheed Martin at 37%. Read that again. RTX stock more than doubled in 3 years. That is not a coincidence. That is a company whose entire business model benefits when the world is unstable, when adversaries fire missiles, when governments feel afraid and reach for their checkbooks. And if you think those numbers are just regular market growth, consider this. In the weeks before launching strikes in Iran, the Trump administration had a problem figuring out how to spend the $500 billion in extra Pentagon money the White House planned to request from Congress. Then, just 2 days after the strikes began, the administration told Congress it planned to burn through $153 billion in additional military funding in the next year alone. Money that Congress had expected to be spent over 5 years, compressed into 12 months. Does that feel like crisis management to you? Or does it feel like a plan? Comment below right now. Tell me honestly, do you think what you are watching in the Middle East is spontaneous conflict? Or do you think money is driving decision-making at the highest levels? I read every comment. I want to know what you think, because here is where it gets personal for every taxpayer watching this. According to the government contract tracker Tender Alpha, in 2024, Department of Defense contracts accounted for between 30 and 40% of Boeing and RTX's revenue, 74% of Lockheed Martin's, and a startling 98% of Booz Allen Hamilton's. 98%. Booz Allen Hamilton is essentially a government-funded private company. Your taxes, their profits. And now those profits are accelerating. The U.S. is already the world's largest military spender at nearly $1 trillion in 2025, exceeding the combined total of the next 9 countries. Trump aims to increase this to $1.5 trillion by 2027. So while Iran's economy is under sanctions, while ordinary Iranians suffer, while American families worry about their sons and daughters in uniform near the Strait of Hormuz, a handful of shareholders are watching their portfolios climb to historic heights. That is the surface. Now let's go one level deeper. In January, Lockheed Martin signed a deal with the Pentagon to quadruple production of the THAAD interceptors, which each cost $12.77 million, from 96 to 400 per year. Quadruple production. Before the war even officially started, someone was ready. Someone had already signed the contracts. And when the UAE needed to intercept Iranian missiles, the UAE intercepted and destroyed 537 ballistic missiles, 2,256 drone attacks, and 26 cruise missiles using their THAAD and Patriot missile defense systems acquired from the United States. Every single one of those intercepts used American-made hardware. Every single one. Do the math on 537 ballistic missiles intercepted when each THAAD interceptor costs $12.77 million. That is one line item in one country. Multiply that across the entire theater of conflict, and you start to understand the scale of what is happening financially. RTX makes the Patriot radar and ground systems that have been widely used in the conflict. Multiple Patriot missiles are sometimes used to intercept every single Iranian missile. Multiple missiles to stop one. Each one sold, each one replaced, each one restocked. The business model practically writes itself. Now pay attention here, because this is the part that Wall Street analysts have been remarkably candid about, which means it is verified and on record. One analyst explained to clients, defense spending was already set to surge in 2026, and a protracted war with Iran will make the spending more urgent and less controversial. Less controversial. A war makes it less controversial to spend $1.5 trillion on weapons. Think about what that sentence actually means for a moment. And this one is perhaps the most chilling verified fact in this entire video. Investment analysts are confident there is no imminent threat of peace breaking out soon in the current Iran conflict. The greatest threat to investors in these firms is peace. Peace is the threat. Not war, not civilian casualties, not diplomatic failure. Peace is what these investors are afraid of. When peace talks begin during prolonged conflicts, investors in defense firms sell. That is not a conspiracy theory. That is a documented, publicly stated financial reality. And now we need to follow the money one step further, because the connection between these contractors and the political decisions being made has receipts. Paper trail receipts. Many lawmakers who endorsed the strikes also receive major contributions from defense PACs and military-industrial donors. The revolving door between Congress, the Pentagon, and defense lobbyists continues to spin. It never stops spinning. When a congressman votes for war funding, and that same congressman received hundreds of thousands of dollars from Lockheed Martin's PAC, what are you actually looking at? A democracy making a decision? Or a financial interest protecting itself? And the oil angle cannot be ignored. Following the strikes, crude oil jumped above $78 per barrel, with analysts suggesting futures could surge to more than $100 per barrel. In 2024 alone, oil and gas lobbying reached $153 million. $153 million spent in 1 year. lobbying politicians for favorable policy, while those same politicians are voting on war and peace. Despite ongoing sanctions, Iran still managed to export around 1.9 million barrels per day as of December, according to the International Energy Agency. Now think about what eliminating Iranian oil from the global market does to the price of oil from Saudi Arabia, from Kuwait, from the Gulf states. Who benefits when Iranian oil disappears from the equation? Follow that question honestly, and the map gets very uncomfortable very fast. If you are still watching and this is landing for you, do something for this channel right now. Hit the like button. YouTube's algorithm needs to see engagement in the first few minutes for a video like this to reach people who need to see it. You are literally helping this information travel by clicking that button. It costs you nothing and it matters enormously to us here at Verified Bulletin. Now back to something the White House actually said on record, because this part is important. A White House official confirmed, and I am paraphrasing from the verified statement, during Operation Epic Fury, Iran was crushed militarily. Their ballistic missiles are destroyed, their production facilities are dismantled, their navy is sunk, and their proxies are weakened. Now they are being strangled economically. The Iranian regime knows their current reality is not sustainable. Strong words, and they may even be partially true. But here's the question nobody in prime time is asking. If Iran is already militarily crushed and economically strangled, why does the conflict continue escalating instead of concluding? Why are U.S. forces still conducting self-defense strikes at Iranian ports? Why is Project Freedom, the Strait of Hormuz escort mission, still on pause instead of declared complete? Lockheed Martin CEO Jim Taiclet, speaking to investors on the company's first quarter 2026 earnings call in April, did not attempt to be subtle about what the current political environment means for the world's largest defense contractor. He called it a golden opportunity. A golden opportunity. While the Strait of Hormuz remains a flashpoint, while families in Tehran, in Dubai, in Bahrain are living under threat of missiles, while American sailors navigate one of the most contested waterways on Earth, golden opportunity. Billions of dollars have already been spent by the U.S. on weapons in the war with Iran, making war a highly profitable business for defense contractors. And Trump is planning to ask Congress for another $50 billion in military funding, with Republicans unlikely to block it, with Democrats divided, with public attention fractured between the conflict narrative and the political theater around it. But here is a question you should sit with after this video ends. If the CIA genuinely assesses that Iran can survive 3 to 4 more months before real economic hardship sets in, and if Iran still has significant portions of its missile stockpiles intact, despite what official statements claim, and if every single ceasefire has been followed by more escalation, then what does the actual end game look like? And more importantly, who profits most from the answer being delayed? One final number to leave you with, and this one connects everything. The combined shareholder wealth gain for the top 3 contractors on a single trading day was in the range of $25 to $30 billion. That figure is also roughly equal to the Pentagon's annual spend on military family housing and quality of life programs. The same amount that could fund every military family housing program for an entire year was generated for shareholders in a single morning. That is not an emotional argument, that is arithmetic, and arithmetic does not lie. War costs us that. War earns them that. Those 2 sentences held side by side tell you everything you need to know about why certain conflicts never seem to fully resolve, why negotiations are always just out of reach, why the ceasefire always has an asterisk, why the escalation always has another chapter. The money always reveals the motive, not the speeches, not the press conferences, not the carefully worded statements from senior officials. The money. And that is exactly what Verified Bulletin exists to show you. Not the version of events designed for cable news cycles, the version with actual receipts attached. If this video gave you something to think about, gave you a new lens, gave you information you have not heard packaged this way before, then do 3 things for this channel. Subscribe right now because we are building something here that genuinely values your intelligence. Drop a comment telling me what angle you want us to follow next on this conflict, whether that is the nuclear deal money trail, the Saudi Arabia financial interest, or the tech companies now supplying AI systems to the Pentagon. And share this video with one person in your life who you think is only getting one side of this story. Because the most powerful thing a viewer can do in 2026 is share verified information. Not outrage, not headlines, verified. That is the name on this channel for a reason. We will see you in the next one.